Hello and welcome back to Up the Villa podcast. And I am absolutely buzzing for this because, as you all know, Justin hasn't been on the podcast for some time. And, even from my personal point of view, he's the backbone to this podcast. Everybody watches it for Villa, but they also watch it to collectively see me, Justin, Hannah, and Ryan. And the fact that you've not been on it for so long has made doing the podcast quite difficult because, normally I can just be like, especially in the summer when before the season started, and I was like, Justin, we've been linked with him. Are you free in 10 minutes? And you're like, yeah, Sam, mate, I'm on. So, you are sort of like my right-hand man during the
Very
week and
kind.
on episodes. So, yeah, you've been a massive miss, and everybody has massively missed you as well. So, how are you, and how are you doing?
Thanks, mate. That's very kind. Yeah, I'm doing okay. We a brief explainer. I won't go into massive details. I've put a little bit on social media, but my father-in-law, unfortunately, was taken ill earlier in the year, and the diagnosis was a terminal one, unfortunately. So we spent the first few months looking after him. And sort of in the past 6, 7, 8 weeks, he became pretty ill. So I decided to step away from everything really and just concentrate on family and him and my wife, who helped care for him. It's been a really, really tough time, one of the toughest times of my life, to be honest. And I'd like to thank everybody really, because I mean, Twitter gets a lot of stick. But the amount of lovely messages I've had and people, just getting in touch and asking if I'm okay and stuff like that has been incredible. I'd like to thank everyone. I don't think I could thank everyone by name, to be honest, but you all know who you are. And massive to you, Hannah and Ryan, really, because, I've been bouncing off you really over the last few weeks, and for the support and just a bit of normality during a tough time. And you've all been incredible, Family is a very important thing to everybody, isn't it? And it puts everything into perspective when you go through something like we have. We're not the only people that have ever gone through it, and very, very sadly, we won't be the last people to go through it. So anybody that is going through anything like this currently, my heart goes out to you, and stay strong, and you will get through it. I'm sure we've got rocky roads ahead, but we laid him to rest this week, and he's a massive Villa fan. I can't explain how big a Villa fan he was. I couldn't have married into a better family, to be honest, because his love of Villa is as much as mine is, and it's been phenomenal. I've been married and been with my wife for 30 years, so he's been a huge part of my life for 30 years. So you can imagine the heartbreak we've suffered over the last few weeks. But, one of the last things I actually did with him was spend an afternoon watching a game on the telly with him, which was lovely. So yeah, he was a big sort of supporter of me doing this as well, and talking on the radio, and he used to love me sending him clips and stuff. So it's something I'm definitely going to carry on with, and I'm pleased to be back. Thanks for all the support. So let's get back into it.
Well, yeah, you speak great words there, Justin, and everybody is there for you and very supportive of you. So I imagine it has been really difficult for you as well. So let's talk about Villa then. A lot's happened since the last time I spoke to you on a
Just a
podcast
bit.
about Villa. So, we've got quite a few topics to talk about, really. I'm going to let you do all of the talking because I've done a lot of the talking, and it's nice to hear your thoughts on it all. So, let's talk about the start of the season then. How have you made
Okay.
the start of Villa's season?
Premier League wise, I think we've been really good. Overall, I think if you take it as an overall up to where we sit now with this international break, I don't think you're going to see too many complaints. Not from me anyway. I think we had a bit of a toughish start, didn't we? Some tough games, but we came through that. The Liverpool game was disappointing, obviously, but we managed to sort of pick up points after that. Newcastle, again, a disappointing result, but two of the hardest away games in the Premier League now. You can just look at the league table and you can see, where Liverpool are, what they're doing pretty well. Newcastle, they're a bit hit and miss, but it's still a very tough place to go, St James's Park. You ask PSG how hard it is to go to St James's Park, they'll tell you. So, you're going to expect these little things, but I think our Premier League form overall is great. I mean, if you'd have said where we sit now, fifth after 8 games with 16 points, 2 points a game is a fantastic season. So the rate we're currently going at, we should really be looking at a really good end to the season, which is what we all thought at the start of the season, didn't we, before we started? So I don't see, and I haven't seen anything that changes my mind as far as that. For me, it's the priority. It's the number one competition still. You can't take your eye off that. It doesn't matter how many cup competitions you're in and how many things potentially you want to try and win. Your Premier League has to be your bread and butter. That's where ultimately I think our best chance of qualifying for Europe again next year is. So I think we've got to make sure that we keep motoring, which is why Unai makes sure that our best 11s still are picked on match days, Premier League games. So I think that's important. I think you factor in the injuries we've had. He's managing not the biggest of squads now, especially with all the injuries, as I say, we've had. We probably would have liked 1 or 2 more in the summer. I think we decided after the transfer window shut, and we all said hopefully we won't get too many more injuries on top of the 2 major ones we suffered right at the start. But we have picked up a few more, haven't we? Which is a big shame. But I think given where we sit with the squad depth, I think he's managing it very, very, very well. We'll come on, I suppose, talk about cup competitions in a minute. But as far as the Premier League goes, I'm really happy. I think the style of play again is very good. Some of the results have been phenomenal. Some of the passages of play in game have been great. Emery doing what Emery does best, managing games and picking teams to win games. So yeah, I'm very, very satisfied with Premier League as it stands.
Justin is back talking utter sense. So, music to my ears, this is. So, we've just briefly touched on the start of the season. What have you been impressed with, sort of playing wise? Because we seem to be, to me, sort of still evolving, and he's
Yeah.
still trying different things. Against Zawinski, second half, he went to this sort of like flat back 3, trying to break down a low block. Against Wolves, we stuck with that 3, the 3 centre halves, which is what we saw in pre-season. So that's sort of shifted from last season, where we'd have sort of 2 and then a cash or so what are your thoughts on how we are evolving in that sense? I still think we're far from the finished article this season, but do you think we're still going to see that tactical evolution?
I think so. I don't think that'll ever stop. I don't think if he stayed for 10 seasons, I don't think that would ever stop, because he's not the kind of manager that sits on his laurels and just thinks that he's cracked it and let's just do this and we'll be great, because that's not football and that's not modern football these days, because a lot of managers are very tactically aware, tactically astute. And the younger managers come into the game now are sort of trying to pick off the better managers and sort of develop their style that way. And I like the way he does it. I like that he doesn't sit on his laurels. I like that he doesn't just stick to one formation and one tactical approach and one way of playing, because you can't. And the amount of, we've seen it already now, we're adding European football into the equation. We've seen, from our first 2 games, it's a tough competition. You can look at these teams and think, oh, I've never heard of them, or that they're not going to be very good. But a lot of them are seasoned European campaigners with strong, solid first 11s that have got good records in Europe. Yes, they're not probably going to go on and win it, but they're going to cause teams trouble, and we've seen that already, haven't we? So we've got to find ways to play against all these different types and styles of teams and formations and tactical approaches. And the best way of doing it isn't a sort of one-stop shop of just we play 4-4-2. This is our first 11. We play this way, and it'll work against some teams. It works against others, and there's a reason why Unai Emery, after every single game, opens his laptop up and gets straight on it, because he knows that the next challenge might be completely different to the one we've just faced. So, given again, I will keep saying it because it has had a big impact on our season. Given the squad problems and the injury problems, we have had to play a different way, haven't we? The loss of Tyrone Mings, we all knew it was a big loss, but I don't think we probably realised it was a bigger loss as it was, because not only was he coming into probably some of the best form we've seen of him at Villa under Unai Emery, but he's that massive vocal presence at the back, isn't he, as well? And I do think, the back four have done pretty well. I don't think he'll be happy with the amount of goals we've conceded, but I think given that we have had to adapt to sort of a new partnership at the back, then I think they've done pretty well, haven't they? We haven't had Moreno back yet, who was a big part of our push last season. Torres, I think, is a fantastic footballer. I absolutely adore watching him play because of the way he goes about his game. He's just never flustered. And yes, he has got the odd mistake in him, but that I think more to do with the adaptation to the Premier League and the speed of the Premier League and the physicality of the Premier League. We all know he's not the biggest physical presence at the back, but what he lacks in that, he more than makes up for with ability on the ball. So I think the one or two blips we had in the first few weeks probably came down to that, but overall I think he's been a revelation, and having to step into Tyrone Mings' shoes isn't an easy thing to do, is it? And I think we've seen him now starting to come good, and Ezri Konsa has been, for me, fantastic this season. Still beggars belief he doesn't get an England call-up, but we won't talk about him, the England manager, I mean. And I think, the likes of Diego Carlos, who obviously missed most of last season, he's having to come in now and sort of play a waiting game, and it looks like he's going to be used in a back three when we switch to that. And I think he's been well used, and we've got good players all over the pitch. There's one or two that haven't probably stepped up yet. I mean, probably Yuri Tielemans, who I've seen get a lot of stick, but we haven't seen the best of him. I don't think. I really don't. And you hear the murmurings, and you don't know how much to believe, obviously, because you never know who's saying what. That he's already knocked on the manager's door and wants to play more, but that's going to come because we're going into a really hectic schedule now, and we have lost Ramsey again for a while, so he's going to get a lot of minutes. Who knows what's happening now with the Italian Zaniolo now, with that question mark hanging over him. So you would think that Tielemans is going to get more game time. So it's up to him now to step up, because when he has played, he has looked a little bit off the pace. There's no question about that, But a player that possesses massive amounts of quality, and given a run in the team, you'd like to think that he could get a bit of form together and really add quality and value to our first 11. So overall, I think, we'll never see this team not evolve. I think that's what I'm trying to say, and I don't want it to fully evolve eventually, because you see that with Pep at City, all the things they've won, all the players they've had over the years, and he constantly looks at new ways to attack games, because you've got to be on the front foot in every single game, haven't you? You want the opposition guessing and thinking, what are they doing next? What they're doing here? And if we did sort of stop and say that's just how we're going to play, then it gives the opposition a chance to sort of get ahead of us, doesn't it?
Yeah, it's been I'd say a remarkable start to the season, really, but especially
I
Premier
think
League
so.
wise, to be sitting
Yes.
in fifth place is, absolutely outstanding. And I think, perspective of the injuries, not only to sort of the first team and, making a difference for the Premier League games, but it has an impact on the cup games, because
Mm.
if those players aren't available, you can't rotate with those
No.
players that aren't available. So
And
that
it's
means
not an
that then
excuse either, is it? It's not an
no,
excuse to say that you've had injuries. That's a factual element to this season, And we did have to at the start, obviously, go on four fronts. And yes, I know the Everton game was a massive disappointment to a lot of people. And, I saw one or two people saying, well, we should have gone full strength against Everton. It's a realistic chance of winning the and it is. There's no question. It's a realistic chance of winning the competition. But what's the alternative? Going your full 11 when you've got a game on the Sunday, and you've got a game on the next Thursday, and you've got a game on the Sunday after that. You can't run your first 11 into the ground. You just can't.
no.
You're going to end up carrying more and more injuries, suspensions, and the fatigue will hit very early. It might not. The effect of that might not be now, but it might be in 3 months' time, when you're in the latter stages of maybe the Europa Conference League, and you need your players to be firing on all fronts, and all of a sudden they've played 10 games more than everyone else at that stage. So it's a massive balancing act, something we haven't had to deal with as a fan base for a long time. He's going on four fronts, and we're learning again. It's been a while that we've had to get used to this. It's seen a rotation policy going cup team, cup team, league team. And in the list of priorities, it's an old cliche, and it probably was the fourth priority for me. FA Cup is a very important competition. I'd love to go really deep in that. Conference League, I do think we've got a realistic chance to win it because I think we are one of the strongest squads in that competition. And the Premier League, as I said at the start, for me is the number one priority because you can't take your eye off the ball there, because the importance of the Premier League not only is getting a qualification for Europe next season, but it's raising the profile of the club for potential signings next summer and the summer after that. If you're consistently in that fourth to sixth, top six in the Premier League, the clubs, players all over Europe are going to see us as a viable option to come and play for, and that just strengthens us. As we've seen this season, our first 11 is excellent. Our squad players, some of them, are leaving a little bit to be desired. So, the improvement of the squad is not going to happen overnight. It might take another 3 or 4 windows to get to a place where we can go on four fronts comfortably, where we're not looking at a cup team or a Carabao Cup team and going, oh, God, he's playing. I'm a bit worried about him, or I'm a bit worried about him. That doesn't happen overnight, and it's still not going to happen this season, and maybe not even next season, So we've just got to be patient, haven't we? A little bit patient.
Yeah. I agree, and I think you mentioned the word fatigue as well, and I think it's quite easy to think of physical fatigue, but there's also mental fatigue that goes into this heavy schedule of playing a game every 4 or 5 days. Because even if a player doesn't make it on the pitch, they've still mentally prepared to play that game. They've still travelled. They've still done warm ups. They've still trained hard all week, and it's sort of, I can imagine that playing under Unai Emery it's not an easy thing to do just because they're footballers. It's not an easy, he's very, very demanding. So, I think rotation is key. I'm with you. I stick by it. I think Premier League is the main aim this season. Europe as well. So, I saw a picture of Dougie Luiz yesterday, like fishing, and I just thought, God, it looks like he's chilled, and I'm happy. I'm happy that he's chilled. I'm happy that he's fishing. Just relax and come back ready for West Ham on Sunday coming up then. So new players then. You mentioned Pau. Is Pau the one that you've been massively impressed with?
I think so, yeah, because he came in with a big reputation, didn't he? And one of the marquee signings of the summer, really. And I think pre-Ming's injury, the question was, how many games will he play? Will he be first choice? Would he? He's that good, and his reputation is that good. That the realistic question was, is he coming in as a replacement for Tyrone Mings? Is he going to take his position? And we'll never know. Well, we might know at some point, but we won't know this season whether that's the case. But I think realistically, he's a member of this rotation policy, isn't it? Of having 2 good players in every position. He's playing probably more than he probably would have done if we hadn't have had that injury to Tyrone. But overall, I think he's a breath of fresh air. His calmness on the ball, he's phenomenal in tight areas, and when the ball comes to him, he knows what he's going to do before it's even at his feet. And to have a player of that quality at the back should hopefully keep breeding confidence going forward. And his use of the ball is as good as I thought it would be as well. The way, yes, and he does try the odd risky pass. We've seen that. We've seen them cut out, and we see the old universal sigh of, oh no, in the ground. But hopefully not many of those things will lead to chances or maybe even goals against, because I don't want that to impinge on the quality that he does bring to the team, because he is a very, very good footballer. He's of the highest bracket. So he would probably at the moment be probably one of the standouts, I think, of the incomings.
Yeah, touching on a player that has been here for quite a while, Watkins. You must have been pleased to see him score for England.
Yeah, fantastic, isn't it? We know what Ollie Watkins is. He's now probably one of the best strikers in the Premier League. Now you've got Harry Kane leaving. He's if you just look on stats wise over the last few years, his goals and assists, which is the 2 main things you judge a striker on. There isn't many above him now, is there? So I think we've got to be pleased that we have got, and the fact he signed his new contract, which was the only question mark hanging over his head, was, can we get him signed up to a new deal? Because the realistic question you ask is, if he does go, which a lot of fans were sort of saying, oh, we could do better, we could do better. Yeah, we could, but you're talking the elitist of players in the world to replace Ollie Watkins to a better level. And I'm sure there are better strikers than him, but currently the 120 million pound strikers aren't coming to Villa, which is what you'd need to replace Ollie Watkins. He's that important to this team, and you see it when he's not in the side. We do lose that little bit of edge up front, don't we? We do lose that the channel running, and I know it annoys people when he doesn't score. They say, well, he adds a lot to the team, but he does. That's the reality of what he brings to our side. Is he brings energy. I think his hold-up play has got a lot better. I do think that. I watched him for England, and I thought his hold-up play and his receiving of the ball and turning away in tight areas to lay the ball off to players was really good for England. I think he could be very, very pleased. Well, the other question mark going into the season was, we didn't go for a big name backup striker, and we went with Duran, and I've been very impressed with Duran as well. For a raw 19-year-old with very little experience in Europe, let alone in the Premier League, I think he's a more than decent backup striker for us. We've seen him come off the bench and score some very, very important goals now, and I like his attitude. Yes, he's a little bit feisty and he likes to get a little bit in people's faces. I don't mind that so much, as long as it doesn't boil over to sort of silly yellows and red cards and we're losing him for long periods, which I think he's managed to just about hold it onto his temper to do that. And I like the fact that when he has started the odd game and he gets brought off, he's annoyed. He wants to stay on the pitch, he wants to score goals. That's what a striker wants to do. So I think, the decision to keep him over Archer, I think a lot of people questioned it, especially when Archer scored that beautiful goal in his debut for Sheffield United. There was a lot of people thinking, have we done the right thing here, And I like Archer, but I think Duran, at the moment, he's looking like the better prospect, which you would then say that the right decision was made, wasn't it?
Yeah, I think I've watched a bit of Archer as well, and so I know he's playing in a poor Sheffield United team, but everything I thought is still there with Archer. If you give him a shot inside the 18-yard box, he'll probably bury it. But his overall game outside of that, I think it's still lacking. And
it might
yeah,
develop, mightn't it?
yeah. Yeah, but like you say, I really like what I've seen from Duran. I think Benteke had that sort of feisty side to him, didn't he? He had a few reds in him. So yeah, everything that you say, really, I tend to agree with. To be fair, so
and I think
let's talk.
Sorry, Diaby's the other one as well, isn't it? Record signing coming in, another one with a big reputation, and I think he's done really well. I think he's been a little bit quiet the last couple of 3 weeks, but I think after the initial impact of when he signed and he did really well, getting a couple of goals and a few assists, it has dropped a little bit off. But so this little break, hopefully, will do him good, and he come back firing for us after the break. But he's been very impressive. He's a very technically gifted footballer. He's like a much better Leon Bailey, isn't he? And Bailey's done okay, to be fair to him, this season when he's had the chance. So yeah, I think the signings up to now have been pretty decent, and I think that not many misses. I don't think.
No, I agree. So let's talk on off field, which there's a lot to talk about. So new badge. We had the email come through, I think it was Friday night, about the results record. 16,000 people have voted for the badge. And I can't remember the numbers off the top of my head, but quite a lot of people wanted it to say Aston Villa and Aston Villa FC. Then quite a lot of people want it to have the year that we were founded. A lot of people still want it to be a shield. Sounds pretty similar to the last one. So I'm not really too sure on whether they're just going to now create something and say, this is what we've got. We've consulted you, but this is our direction. So what are your thoughts on the badge first? Because we were at Villa Park in the summer for when the kit came out. And then we heard that day that the badge wasn't really going to be sticking around. So, what do you think, badge wise? Do you think, because at the top of that email as well was that singular lion?
Yeah.
So, from the results of what Villa fans have voted for, they don't really want just a singular lion, do they? So, what do you reckon?
There seems to be a bit of Darren Brown subconscious sort of leaning this line into all these little social media and online, and a lot of the stuff that comes through from the club. It just sits there, doesn't it, on the breast of the jacket as well. You do see it a lot. So whether they are leaning, seeing what people's thoughts of it are, I don't know. Look, it's a hot topic, isn't it? You know, the badge is probably the single most important part of the kit of the club. It's our identity, isn't it? That's when they see that, you should see Aston Villa, shouldn't you? And I do think this one is. I don't know. I liked it when I first saw it, but I do sort of agree that it's not right. I do think that
No.
I do.
Yeah.
I'm glad that the club have decided very quickly that we need to look at it again, because if we've stuck with this for 10, 15 years, I think it doesn't. I see where they're coming from. That's what I'm trying to say. I see that it's got to be right. I think these fan surveys, they're on a hiding to nothing with every single time. You ask a fan base as big as ours any question about the football club, and you are never going to get the answer you want. You just aren't. I mean, the most striking one was 52% want the Shield and 48% don't. You know, where have we seen that before? Brexit, and that divided a country. So it's going to divide a fan base, because if you got half wanting one thing and half wanting the other, whichever way the club decides to go, you're alienating the other half, aren't you? So it's difficult. It's so difficult. I feel really, really sorry for Chris Heck. I really do, because I think a lot of the decisions, and we'll go on to talk about all the other things that are going on off the field, I know, were made pre him coming in, and he's been left basically to clear up all the shit show that's been left behind and the fans' discontent. And the biggest shame of all this is that it's leaking into the sort of football side of things, and on the pitch stuff, which it shouldn't, because on the field we're doing fantastically well. I think we've got to try and really in our heads split them to off field and on field. There's a lot going on off the field. The improvements of the stadium, all this corporate stuff going on, and the badge. I really don't know what to say. I don't know where the way they're going to go. They've got to make it a decision somewhere. Someone has to make that decision, and I feel sorry for whoever has to make that decision, because it will not please everybody.
No.
If you look into Chris Heck and what he did at the 76ers, it was a massive, massive success. He turned a failing club that was failing to reach the community it sat in, and on a wider scale, and he turned it on its head, and he did a phenomenal job. The social media side, the corporate side, the merchandising side, he did unbelievable. So I'd like to think, with that experience behind him, we've got a decent bloke that can maybe try and lead it somewhere where the majority, and that's all you're going to get. You're never going to get everyone, where the majority can be happy. That's the best we're going to get on any of these things, I think. Majority happy, and then we can start forgetting about this off-field stuff and just solely concentrating on what's going on the pitch, because it has been a distraction, hasn't it? It's been quite a big talking point so far this season.
And then we've got something new, the lower grounds at half time. It always gets a nice boo from the old crowd, which is the old Holt Suite. I'm
Which is a big
not.
one, isn't it?
I'll be honest, like I always am on this channel. I'm not out of favour with the lower grounds. I think that is quite a quirky new concept, and I don't think it's as bad as what I think it actually is. I think because it's been received with terrace view, price increases, the general fans match day experience not as great, it's fueled into this new thing of we don't like it, we don't like it, we don't want it. But when I break it down and actually think about it, the worst part about it, like I've said before, is that it's took away season ticket holders' experience that go in for free, that go with their friends and family, and that's now disappeared. So those people have got to find somewhere else to go to. But I actually think value for money on it as a one-off, if you were going to do it as a one-off or as somebody's present, or just go and see somebody speak for 60 quid, you get all your booze for free before the game, after the game, popcorn for the kids, the under 13, 14s going for free. You get to listen to a speaker, and I would hope that the speakers are going to get better and better. I saw that there's some, can't think who it is, but Villa are putting on a night, and you can listen to some legends for like 30 quid. And I'm thinking, well, it's 60 quid for the lower grounds. If you're getting to hear from a really good guest, then you'd normally pay 30 quid as a one-off. Or if you go to these little social clubs that they've got speakers, how much is a ticket for them? So I actually don't think that's a bad price, 60 quid. Obviously, you wouldn't want to do it every week. Do I want to do it? Probably not. It's not my thing. But I don't think it's as bad as the reaction is what I'm trying to say. And I know it's a touchy subject. There'll be people that really disagree with me. That's fine, but that's just my opinion. So yeah, I mean, I'll go in the social. I pay a couple of quid to get in. I'm happy as Larry in there. So yeah, but yeah, what are your thoughts on it, Justin?
Oh, another contentious issue, wasn't it? I think the biggest problem with the lower grounds on its own was it came off the back of 3 or 4 other things, didn't it? What's the one, the Holt in the middle of the
Terrace
Holt
view.
called? When Terrace View. So we had that was suddenly announced, and that put a lot of people's noses out. Although I think that has allowed some fans the opportunity. I know some disabled fans that have managed to get seats in the Holt and that they never thought in their life they could get. So I think it's been good for them. Again, the corporate side of things, and before I talk about the lower grounds, is the biggest problem the club have got currently is they can't service the fans on the concourses well enough. The service is poor, the quality is poor. So as soon as you see, if that was brilliant, if you walked into Villa, and, like, I'll go in the Trinity. If I walked into the Trinity and I could pretty quickly, I'd always expect a queue, never think that would ever go away, but pretty quickly get a decent pint for a decent price. It's always going to be more than your local pub, obviously, and something nice to eat for a half decent price. It would take away the contempt that's now been shifted towards the lower grounds. Now, I'm a season ticket holder. I've been for many, many years. And up until a couple of 3 seasons ago, I never used the Holt Suite. I never did, because I'm the type of fan. I like to get there 10, 15 minutes. I've never been a big drinker, so drinking before a game's never bothered me that much. I like to get in the ground, see my mates, sit in my seat, watch the game, stay to the end, have a quick chat after, then get off home. That's been my experience, and I love that. And we're all different what we want out of a match day experience. But the last couple of 3 years, since my family have stopped coming to Villa as well, I now get there a little bit early, and I was using the Holt Suite to meet people, and it's been a nice place to go in. It's been a lovely free addition, if you like, to your season ticket. You can go in, you can have a sit down. The food's pretty decent. The bars up last season, you could get served fairly quickly. They'd sort of got on top of it, and it was nice. The biggest problem they had is they withdrew it after the season started. Had they said a month before the season tickets came on sale that they were changing the Holt Suite to a corporate venue and it would stop being a perk of season ticket holders, that would then have informed the people that wanted to buy a season ticket of a decision then they'd have had to make, wouldn't they? I don't know many season ticket holders that would have turned around and said, if I can't go in the Holt Suite before the game for free, I am not buying a season ticket. I don't think it was that important to people. It was lovely and it's been nice and I've enjoyed it. But I don't think people would have said, I'm not buying a season ticket to watch Villa because I can't go in there. The problem is they did it after the season started, and that caused a lot of furore because people expected to have that additional little perk throughout the season, and that causes a lot of fans to be pretty annoyed. And as I say, going on to the other thing and the problems on the concourses, and then all the kit, and we'll talk about that, bits and bobs. It's leaning all the way into this little bit of disconnect now between the owners and the people that run the club and us as fans. And it's such a shame. It's such a shame, because if 10 years ago you'd have said to me, we'll be where we are on the pitch, competing where we are for European and top end of the Premier League, you'd have said, I'll do anything to be there. And now we are there. All we're finding is, we're having these little problems and people are moaning. And
Do you not
I
think
understand it.
it's I totally understand. I totally understand both sides. Like
I
I've
do,
said,
yeah.
I've gone to the whole 10 this season. The urinals are literally full. They were full on the
Yep.
last game as well. There was no lights for the one game. We went to one of the cup games, and there was like 3 people like serving, and the queue was massive. And I totally understand that, and I do think that the club are trying to rectify that now
Yeah.
as well. So I think that is good, but I think the club's trying to evolve, which is the main thing. I think, and it's not an excuse. It's not sticking up for them because they're trying to charge fans more money. But I think they've got to a point now where their aspirations on the pitch are starting to look very, very good, but they're so far behind some of the other
Yeah.
clubs,
Yeah.
miles behind. We as fans think we are bigger than Newcastle. We
Yeah.
think we're a bigger club. We think we're a bigger club than Arsenal
Everyone.
or
Yeah, then
Spurs.
everyone, yeah.
Villa fans, honestly, we believe in our club and we think our club is the best club in the world. But there's certain areas of it that are absolutely miles off it.
Yeah.
Look at Spurs. Look at Spurs.
Yeah.
They've got a fantastic new stadium. They're hosting like NFL games.
Mm.
Like an American team are coming over to play their fixtures in their stadium, which brings fans from probably all over Europe to come and watch. Some fans in France probably can't go to America to watch it, so they go to London to watch it. And just compare that to what we have. Even on that instance, we're just miles off it. And I think the club are trying to close a gap, and it's a massive, massive gap. And it's been a problem for Villa, hasn't it? Because we've always been that team that are sort of like scrambling around, aren't we, on the pitch?
Mm.
We're scrambling for success. We've got Dino and love him to pieces. But when we were in the Premier League towards the end, we were just we were just trying to find ourselves, and we couldn't
Yeah.
find it. There was no vision, there was no plan. We go to Gerrard, he ain't got a clue. We're scrambling around. He's coming in trying to have this big time mentality. The owners are saying with this big club, whenever a new signing comes in, it's like, I'm at a massive club now. They're a huge club. They've got great fan base. Villa Park's huge. It's just words. But now we've got the manager with the vision and everything of Monchi, Vidagani, Heck, the owners. There's a plan now, but there's a comfortable strategic plan that in 3 years' time, if we've still got Emery, which I imagine we will do, it's a lot calmer. We can kind of relax a bit now because the plan's there. Follow the plan, trust the process, as the saying goes. Continue with the growth of getting youth or whatever direction we're going with that. Buy players for Emery's system, like what Monchi did at Seville. He has his list of targets, who fits Emery's style of play. All that's taken care of now. Got to get this off-field stuff correct for us to be able to compete. And I think having that 2028 Euros, if we've got 4 or 5 games, the new North Stand, that's all going to help with that match day experience. Witten Station looks like that's going to get the go ahead once Aston Station then starts to get done as well after that. We just got to find our feet and find the correct path. And sometimes it's not going to please everybody. And to get to the right direction, sometimes might have to be a bit of hurt and a bit of something that you don't feel comfortable or you don't feel right with. But they're only doing it for the best of Aston Villa. And I think that's got to be in people's minds as well, really. I mean, that's just
Yeah.
generally how I feel.
No, I
I'm just
agree.
being honest.
No, I agree. I think, we're all emotional, aren't we? We all want the best for Villa, and we all want it yesterday. And the reality is, it's not going to happen that quickly. I think what's happened is the on-field evolution of Villa has gone so fast, and we've done so well that the off-field Villa hasn't been able to keep up with it. It just hasn't. The quality you expect from a team where we are. We're probably a high-end championship club off the pitch. That's being realistic of the quality of service, the quality of what of the facilities we've got. I think Tottenham is the extreme, obviously, example, but they basically had to knock their old stadium down because they couldn't redevelop White Hart Lane. And if they'd have tried to offer the quality of service they're giving now to their fans in White Hart Lane, that would have been almost impossible. A lot of our stands aren't equipped. The North Stand, especially, which is why it's going, they're just not equipped to put modern facilities in to deal with thousands of people. And that's the problem they're having. And with the greatest will in the world to the staff that staff it, you're talking people that come in and work 2 or 3 hours a week, 3 or 4 hours a week, 5 or 6 hours a week, every other week. And they need hundreds of them. So it is, from someone that employs a handful of people, it's very difficult to get that amount of people to come and work for you a couple of times a month, and then them all to be totally on it, especially when the facilities aren't that great. As far as the lower grounds go, you know, corporate seems to be a nasty word to majority of Villa fans because they see it as an us versus them scenario. Us fans that can just about afford season tickets and pay to go week in, week out against people that have got a lot of money and they can afford what they want. And it's like it's us versus them. Why do they get treated better than us? And it shouldn't be like that. The facilities that we get in our stands should be good. They should be good. They shouldn't be poor. We should have a good experience. The fan experience should be better. And I've no doubt it's going to get there. The new stand is going to be phenomenal. It's going to be brilliant. And I think for me, I think you've nailed it on the head. The key was getting the Euros, and we've got them. The key was Villa being one of the stadiums, and it is. So now we have got an end goal. Our stadium has got to be a very good standard to be able to host European games in 2028. So we have now got a period of time to catch up off the pitch. I mean, the main thing will be the massive new stand. But the other thing will have to be the improvement of everybody else's matchday experience. The warehouse, I really, really hope that is an opportunity for the club to listen to what everybody's said now about what's going on, especially the lower grounds, especially the terrace view, of alienating the normal fan, if you like. Now, that is a huge area. We've all been in there. I went in there with my kids, and it was a lovely experience. The kids loved it, face painting, blah, blah, all put on by the club. That is a huge area. If done correctly and if relevated to anywhere near what we've seen on the visuals, that will be a lovely space to go in before a game. Now that it probably will be charged. I'd be amazed if they didn't charge it, or maybe add it as what they class as a bolt on now in a season ticket. But do it cleverly. Just add it as a 20 quid bolt on for a season. £1 a game or something like that. Nobody would question it. It's a bit more revenue for the club. It allows the normal season ticket holders to be able to go in on a match day. And if there's any spaces left at the end, then it can be a pay to go in, like you pay to go in the pubs. There's a reason why the pubs around Villa pay on a match day for them to go in, because they want to increase their revenue. But nobody slags off the pubs for charging 2, 3, 4, 5 quid to go and have a pint. If I go down there on a Tuesday afternoon at 2 o'clock, they don't charge me 2 quid to go in the social. They go, come in, mate, have a pint. The reason they do it on a match day is because they know they're going to get hundreds of people going in. So they're increasing their revenue. What's the difference between a pub increasing the revenue and Villa doing it? No one likes to hear it. They're all businesses. And I want, after what we've seen with Shah in the past, I want my club to be self-sustaining. That's the only way a football club can ever exist forever. Because at the moment, most football clubs only exist when they've got good owners. As soon as any owner disappears at any football club, they go into decline. It's happened multiple times. And then you get a good owner again and you start to rise again. I'd love us to be self-sustaining. And the only way you do that is by being able to bring enough money into your coffers and be successful enough on the pitch to pay for everything every year. And part of that is corporate. So it's got to happen. I think it's been done wrong this year. I think it's been poorly communicated. It's all been said. The club have got to do better off the pitch. But I trust Keck and I trust the owners because they haven't let us down yet to get it right off the pitch. It won't happen tomorrow. It might not happen in the next 2 seasons. But by 2028, I hope we've got a stadium which we can all be proud of and we can all go and have a brilliant match day experience in.
Love it. Love it. Right, that's us done then. 46 minutes of Justin talking a lot of sense. Lot of topics discussed. So drop your thoughts in the comment section down below. We will have our match preview. Justin's on it. That'll probably be coming out on Wednesday, and then we've got all of our normal concepts coming out during the week as well. So great to have you back, Justin.
Nice to be
We've
back.
missed you a lot, so give Justin some nice comments in the comment section, and up the Villa.
Up the Villa.